Welcome back to part 3 of the 2024 GSL Season 1 qualifiers. I'm of course your host like VIP, and with me I am joined by the lovely people in the chat and by these amazing players as well. We have already gone through a day's worth of grueling best of series of grueling qualifiers. We just held 5 qualifying matches. We had 5 earlier today, we had 5 yesterday as well. 10 players have qualified for GSL for Season 1, and there's still more slots left. There are 6 slots remaining, and there are 8 players in this bracket, in this small bracket here. So to wind it back a little bit, we did have 4 groups. We had 4 groups of players in the GSL qualifiers. We had 2 players, sorry, 4 groups, what? We had 5 groups, sorry, we had 5 groups of players, and 2 players made it out of each group. I was like doing the math in my head, I was like, wait, 4, that doesn't make any sense. We had 5 groups of players, 2 players made it out of each group. We have 10 qualified players already, and there are 6 slots remaining, and we will switch our scene over to have a look at what those matches are going to be looking like. Here we go. We have sOs versus Stats, Nightmare versus DRG. Then the losers will play against each other in another qualifying match. Then we have Gimme Her versus TY, Beyond versus Ryung, and oh, that's a lot of TVTs. that's a lot of TVTs, because that's going to be another TVT at the bottom of the bracket as well, or the bottom at the final qualifying spot as well. I did not realize what I was stepping into. I did not realize what was happening. Yeah, we had an amazing amount of matches earlier today. And we had some upsets. We had some upsets occur. We had Solar versus Björn, where Solar was able to qualify in a best of 3 over Björn, 2-1. And then Björn got knocked down to the final qualifying match of the night, where he played against Su. And I thought it was a sure thing. I thought, okay, Björn, he's got this. He's going to bring down Su. It's going to be 2-0. It'll be fine. Björn, he should qualify for GSL. He should. But he didn't. Björn went for 2 one-base all-ins. It was a best of 3, 2 games in a row. Björn went for differing one-base all-ins. Game 1, he went for a Proxy Factory, a 2-factory Mass Cyclone all-in in Game 1 against Su. In Game number 2, he went for a 1-base 1-1-1 Hellbat all-in, a Marine Hellbat all-in, which also failed. Su defended against both. Su qualified over Björn, and that was crazy. Su qualifying over Björn should not have happened, and now Björn is in the final qualifier, and I'm concerned. Now that I'm looking at these matches, I'm concerned for Björn, because he's up against arguably the player with the best TVT in Korea. Maybe the best TVT in the world. If you were here for WTL, if you were here for World Team League last year, it was a couple of months ago now, after DreamHack Atlanta, after Clem was crowned the DreamHack Atlanta champion, after Clem was dubbed the best Terran in the world, he was wreaking havoc in WTL. He was just leading the charge for Team Liquid. They were going on a tear, taking down every single team until they ran into Onside. And it wasn't Maru who stopped Clem. It wasn't Solar who stopped Clem. They both tried, they both failed. It was Ryung. Ryung stopped Clem. Game after game, it went to the Super Ace match, and Ryung knocked Clem the hell out of the tournament multiple times in a TVT. And to be fair, Clem, he is known for having, for TVT being his worst matchup. It is his worst matchup, that is true, but Ryung was able to bring him down and did what Maru could not. Maru tried and he failed to bring Clem down in a TVT. Ryung did. So to see this bracket and to see these matches, sorry, to see these qualifying matches, to see that Ryung is in the TVT portion of the bracket of these matches, I'm worried for all the other Terrans. I'm worried for Björn. I'm worried a little bit for Björn. Not gonna lie. Thankfully, it's double elimination. That's why there are 2 empty spots. You can see that that's the losers match basically. So Gumyo and TY, Björn and Ryung, the 2 players that lose in those series will face off against each other. They will face off against each other in a final qualifying match. So essentially we have 8 players. We have these 8 final players, and 6 of them will advance on, 2 of them will be eliminated. And I mean, these are pretty good odds. Pretty good odds for most of these players to make it through. But the reality is that 2 of them will not. And it's kind of hard to judge who won't make it through, especially considering the groups themselves, and upsets can and have already happened. So it's going to get wild. It's going to get wild. It's going to get rowdy. It's going to get crazy, papi, to determine who will make it finally into GSL, into Season 1 of GSL. We are here to find out. Just catching up with the chat. Nice frozen camera light. Oh, it's not frozen, papi. It's not frozen. I just love GSL. It's fine, papi. It's fine. Ah, it's beautiful. But here we go. So we have our first matchup. We have our first best of 3. It's going to be a PvP between sOs and Stats. 2 players that have been struggling, I will say. 2 players that are kind of on the lower end here of the player pool, I would say. But they're in a qualifying match. One of them, sOs or Stats, will make it into GSL, and that's a pretty big moment for both of them. I know they're both kind of in the twilight years of their career, that is true, but regardless, like, they're still amazing players, and this PvP, it's gonna be an interesting one. It's gonna be an interesting one. I am here to bear witness as we are getting ready for game number 1. It's gonna be a PvP on Alkyone. Let's go. Let us go. Beyond's blood must have been frozen when he saw the bracket. I've seen some of these players complain sometimes about seeding in the bracket and things like that. But yeah, I would not want to be any of those Terrans against Ryung. I would not want to be any of them. We'll see though. We'll see what happens. I do want my... I'm a little bit biased as well. I love my Tuna Terran. I do love Ryung, so wish him the best. But we'll see. We'll get there. As that's going to be towards the end of the night. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Alkyone, we have our blue Protoss player representing Club NV. It is sOs. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the red Protoss player representing himself, currently teamless. It is Stats. Here we go. Our PvP is upon us. Now, what I will say, if you remember, I mentioned this earlier today. We were covering the previous half, the previous portion of the qualifiers, is that in the return of Stats, his best matchup is PvP. From at least my experience casting his matches and his games, his best matchup seems to be PvP. This is where he can thrive the most. So he can definitely put on a spectacle here. He can go up against the best of them in a PvP matchup, but so can sOs. I would say that for the both of them, this is where they thrive at the moment. Where they sometimes struggle against Terran and Zerg, they can thrive against their own race. So we'll see how our players compare to each other, because I do think they're pretty evenly matched. I do think that both sOs and Stats are comparable in skill, so I'm curious who can come out on top. I mean, it's a PvP. You know, it's a bit of a coin flip, a little bit. So I'm curious. For the time being, 2-gate opener. 2-gate opener here out of sOs. Likewise, a 2-gate opener out of Stats as well. So standard openers for the time being. Pylons are being thrown down, and no one is throwing down a proxy gateway. Second pylon here in the main base for sOs. Second pylon in the main base for Stats as well. So again, no one is going for any shenanigans. No one is going for any one base proxy all in. Not yet. Not yet in this series. Not in game 1. But now everything is looking as it should. Probes are going to be confirming that, so the next step is going to be to figure out what first 2 units are going to be coming out. We see double Stalker here out of Stats. We have Stalker on its own out of sOs. Oh, there we go. It is going to be Stalker Sentry, so a much more defensive, safe opener here out of sOs. Meanwhile, Stats across the map going for an opener that gives him map control, that does give him a little bit more of a presence here on Alkyone. As he's opening up double Stalker, could follow it up, with double Adept, could double out on the Stalker production, and there it is. We have a 3rd and 4th Stalker on the way. That's going to be quite a lot of firepower here for Stats, and he's moving out. Going to be asserting his dominance here on the map. sOs going to be taking a more defensive stance. Going to be chilling back at home. He's got his Stalker, he's got his Sentry in position. Did he cancel? Okay, we're good. I was like, where's the Stalker? Is being forced back by stats. SOS going to be staying on one base, going for a Stargate follow-up. This should be for Oracle production. This should be to harass and to get some economic damage. Meanwhile, Stats, he has arrived with his first 2 Stalkers. Remember, we do have a 3rd and 4th Stalker on the way. As they are actually chilling back at home, waiting in the main base for anything to come. So just applying a bit of pressure, chipping away at the shields. Nothing major yet. Meanwhile, Stats has a faster expansion, faster natural base here for our red Protoss. Meanwhile, we're going for a Twilight Council. So faster blink here out of Stats, going for a much more standard opener. SOS gonna try his luck here at doing some economic damage. Going for the Oracle, delaying his blink. Again, this is just to take an economic lead. And there it is. Twilight Council's on the way, far delayed compared to his opponents, which means there's a window. There's a window where Stats will have blink and SOS will not. So Stats can make use of that. It's going to be a very tight window here. As we split up our forces, double Stalker on the right, Stalker sentry towards the left. Speaking of, we do have both Stalkers facing off here. Stats does shoot first. Does force back SOS. Oh god! As he's coming in with the Oracle, going for the Stalker kill actually. Okay, bold move. Does spend energy on the Stalker. That means SOS does take control of the center of the map. Likewise though, Stats is now fully aware that the Oracle is on the way. No shield battery in the main base, so it's a little bit vulnerable. Oracle looking for a way in, heading towards the natural instead. And we do not get a probe kill. Good reaction out of Stats. Does preserve his mineral line, does save his workers, and doesn't sustain any damage yet other than losing 1 Stalker. Meanwhile, Blink, more than halfway done. Stats moving out once again, taking a 3rd base behind this. Likewise, so is SOS. But can he hold on to the 3rd? That is the question. As the Hallucination is slipping on by, getting into the main base, getting a read on things. There's no gateway explosion. There's no like 3rd and 4th gateway. Like, we're not getting into really any hyper aggression here. Stats was vying for map control, but again, we shouldn't really be committing to any kind of big push yet. Oh, we do have more gateways on the way though. There is that 3rd and 4th gates. Meanwhile, SOS getting ready back at home. Stasis Trap on the left hand side. Forge is on the way for +1. Shield Battery in production here at the 3rd base location as well. SOS's production is a little bit further behind. In general, it does feel like SOS is slightly 1 step behind here, and a big reason for this is because of the Stargate. The Stargate, the Oracle, this was a pretty big investment that hasn't paid for itself. In a mirror matchup, that's a brutal proposition. As Stats, he finishes up Blink, goes straight into Charge. Charge is on the way. Mining out those middle patches, working towards a 4th. And this is a pretty passive mid-game here. I mean, we're just chilling back at home and building up. Saturating our bases. SOS a little bit late to saturate his own. But again, Stats, he's enjoying these slight advantages. And over time they add up, but here we go. SOS does push in. Does move out across map, takes down one of the sentries. Is going to pay for it though with a couple of Stalkers. Stalkers are getting picked off. At the same time, Oracle does get into the natural, but we do have a reaction. Stats able to react in time. Overall, Stats loses 2 Stalkers at a sentry, but does get 3 Stalker kills. And from here, we're just going to be backing off and taking up towards Zealots. I mean, again, just a really passive game overall. Armies are posturing, both players are expanding, taking their 4th bases. Waiting for their production to kick in. We spoke about this with SOS earlier about how, like, he isn't as... It doesn't feel like he's as wild or as crazy as he once was back in the day. He's not as unorthodox. I say that, he did go for a bunch of all-ins against Dark. That did happen. But even here in PvP, just we're calming things down. We're chill. We're all good. We have matured over time. So working on +2, still building up on 4 bases. Gateway Explosion is on the way. Now, once our 4th base gets up and running for both players, we should be focusing on army production, and we should be refining our armies as well. Stats is going to be one step ahead here, taking up into Disruptors. The Bay is on the way. It's a little bit risky taking up towards Disruptors, but, I mean, so far, sOs doesn't really look like he wants to commit to a fight. So Stats has to buy time, and he is buying time. Stats retreats, he backs off. His army composition is still very gateway focused, gateway centric, stalkers and zealots. Looking at our production here, looking at our tech, we don't have a temple archives for either player, so no archons. No archons, just stalker zealot for sOs, stalker zealot disruptor from Stats. Now the power of disruptors, one, the first couple of novas shouldn't be connecting, but what they are able to accomplish is force out blinks. You force your opponent to spend and waste their blinks, and then the opposing Protoss player can collapse on them and take advantage of that army. So big tech advantage here for Stats. Second Robo is on the way into double disruptor production. sOs still committing to a gateway focused army. Zealot run by is being set up. Does get scouted here by the pylon, by the prism. Likewise, sOs still chilling here in the center of the map. Does catch one of those observers. And we can see, interesting decision. We're going into a Temple Archives. We're going for a second Stargate. Have we scouted? We have. Big scout here. Looks like Hallucination did get across the map. And this is an alternate way to deal with Disruptors. You can go into Disruptors yourself, or Phoenixes are a good way to deal with them as well. Or they're a way to deal with them. So the goal here is sOs is going to be lifting those Disruptors. When a Disruptor is lifted, the Nova is cancelled. So it's a good way to, again, disable those Purification Novas and get rid of those Disruptors. So we're getting into double Phoenix production. We do have the Fleet Beacon on the way. This should be for Phoenix range. Gold base is being taken. And Stats is going to be pushing. It's going to be on him to zone away those Phoenixes to protect. Oh my god, as we rally into the Stalkers. Not a good start as the Phoenix does go down. And now Stats knows. He will be more wary. But as we just mentioned, it's going to be on Stats to zone away those Phoenixes, to focus them down before they can really disrupt those Disruptors. Before they can lift them. sOs is going to be stopping Phoenix production here. Armies are going to be clashing. sOs a little bit supply blocked. Ooh. And we're going into carriers instead. Okay. This is risky. So, Skytoss is the ideal for late game PvP. That is true. Like, we're working towards Skytoss. sOs is on 5 bases. But the problem is that carriers take a long time to build. And Stats should be pushing soon. He's almost maxed. Stats, he's almost maxed out. Both players have been very passive. Both players have rarely moved out past the halfway mark. But Stats is about to push. And sOs will not have carriers ready. We are up to 5 Disruptors. We are pushing in. Likewise, sOs is going to be avoiding the fights. We have a base raid. Gold bases are going to be going down. And Cannon's going to be buying time. Big warp in is not going to be denied. And Disruptors, they come back home. The Novas. We dive on the army. Good focus firing, but Novas will connect. Stalkers are going to be going down. Not the best connections, but connections nonetheless. Stalkers will fall. At the same time, Stats moving out. Ooh, and sOs' supply block is recalling back home. Does go for the recall. Immortals on the way. The first 2 carriers, I believe they have arrived. Good force field there. Out of Stats. Beautiful, just zoning away all those Zealots. Unable to push in. Forcing them out. Stats gonna pull back. Behind this, Stargate, Fleet Beacon. Are we gonna see Skytoss versus Skytoss? This is a rarity in PvP. It doesn't often happen, especially amongst the Korean Protosses. When you involve players like Nightmare, Hero, Classic, they're so aggressive in this matchup. We rarely see them go up to 4 or 5 bases, but Stats and sOs, we're going all the way. We're trying to, at least. Now, in the aftermath, both players lost their gold. Gold bases have gone down, but we're still on a 4-base economy. sOs expanding towards the bottom right. Stats expanding towards the top left. SOS does have the supply lead, is moving out with now his carriers. He's gotten away with it, but I spoke too soon. One carrier gets sniped. Big pick off there by Stats. SOS has to be very wary here with his positioning. Carriers are so immobile. If you get caught out, you will lose it. Will lose that carrier. Zealot run by across the map. We are setting up for a surround. Good Novas here on the Immortals, on the Archons. Oof. But alas, Stats, he's bleeding out a lot of Stalkers and he does not get a kill on this base. Disruptors are going down and we're bleeding out so many Stalkers. Again, Stats, he felt committed to fight there, but he didn't get the base. Barely killed any workers. And now SOS, he has gotten away with this guy just going into Phoenixes. Okay. I was not expecting to go back into Phoenixes, but SOS is going for it. Sprinkles in a couple of Immortals, Archons as well. He has a much more complex army, and he has map control. Stats back at home. Still working on his own carriers. They're on the way. Carriers and Disruptors. A very expensive army. But it is coming together. As SOS does move out. Does move out. Does come across the army. Backs off. Giving Stats the time he needs to actually get into those carriers. And how many do we have? We have 3 versus 3. An even carrier count. The difference is that Stats, he's committing to mass carrier. SOS switching into Phoenixes. Again, I'm not entirely convinced. Usually, if you want to counter carriers, you go into Tempest. As Tempest do bonus to massive units. They do bonus damage to carriers. Nova's going to be going off. Nice lifts. We do lift up those Disruptors just in time. One Nova does connect. The Archons, they're breaking through. We're getting on some of the carriers of Stats. And SOS, it looks like he will get on top of them. 1, 2, 3 carriers going to be going down. Nice lift once again on those Disruptors. The Novas will not connect. And SOS, he has done it. He's broken through. There's 1 Disruptor remaining. And Stats, again, he's lost all of his carriers. 2 more on the way. GG gets called, and just like that, SOS takes game number 1. GG. Bobby. GG, well played. SOS and Stats again, they had a pretty passive early to mid game. They were posturing a little bit, that's true. A little bit of posturing, but for the most part, we just chilled out, macroed up to 3, 4, then 5 bases. Once we got up to 5 bases, that's when we started to be active, and I wanted to give the edge to Stats. Remember, he was the one who was able to rush into those Disruptors first and make use of them. But at the same time, he wasn't able to push with them properly. We ended up in a weird base trade. Both players lost their goal bases. And as we saw SOS coming back home, he was able to have some pretty good fights and have some pretty good engagements overall. We saw Stats take some, again, rougher fights, bleed out a lot of Stalkers, lose all of his Disruptors as well. And in the end, yeah, SOS was able to kind of get away with his carrier production. I did lose his initial carriers, that's true, but was able to maintain them. Stats, unfortunately, was trying to get into carriers of his own, but yeah, the Disruptors just were not working out for him. He had basically invested so much into his Disruptors, and we never really saw a big Nova. We tried to, but yeah, the Phoenixes were a pretty good response out of SOS, and he was able to just pick Stats apart, especially in that final fight. Really well done. Really well done there by SOS. Does take a lead in the series, and now we're getting into game number 2 on Site Delta. Let's go. Let us go. SOS the legend. So good to see him again. Yeah, he's been around for a little bit. He did retire for a long time. Good to see him return. Can he make it into GSL though? That is the question, because we're running out of spots. We're running out of qualification spots, and here we go. We're getting into game number 2 and spawning in the bottom right hand corner of Site Delta. We have our red Protoss player representing Club NV, leading the series 1-0. It is SOS. And spawning in the top left hand corner, we have the blue Protoss representing himself, currently teamless. It is Stats. Oh boy. And I always dread PvPs on site Delta for one reason only: the ramp. One of the few maps where there is a ramp leading into the natural. Because of this, gate expand openers are far more commonplace. Here. And typically, if we see a player like Classic, Hero, Showtime, Max Packs, some of these higher tier Protosses, if they face off on this map, it usually leads into Phoenix Wars, into Phoenix versus Phoenix. The reason for this is because as we set up for a gate expand, we should be... Oh my, this is so greedy. Stats going for a Nexus right after the gateway. Oh, he does get it down. Okay, I was gonna say, we typically take safety gases, we throw down a Stargate, we get into our expand, and because both players went Stargate, we have to go Phoenixes. But Stats was so greedy, going gasless. Open up gasless, he gets his Nexus down. This is arguably the greediest opener you can go for. Even Max Packs doesn't do this. Like, even Max Packs opens up safer than what Stats just did. And now the onus is going to be on SOS. Does take his expansion. Does anyone throw down the Stargate? Do we try to pivot away into something else? My eyes are on SOS. This probe, it's on a mission. Where are we going, Papi? Where are we going? Probe gets sent out, we throw down a pylon. This looks like a proxy Stargate. Now, a proxy Stargate is not all in. It's a way to chrono out oracles to get across map and to punish the economy of the opposing player, to punish those workers and to get as much worker damage as possible. I'm assuming that's what this is, but we'll see. Cybercore is done. We're just building up our gas. There it is, proxy Stargate. So this is going to be for oracles. Again, our goal is to kill workers and to make up for our economic deficit. I say that because Stats does have the faster expansion. It's already done. SOS's is still in production, so Stats will have a higher worker count as a result of the opener, and SOS needs to do something about it. Needs to stop it in some way. Depth moving out. Stargate more than halfway done. Looking at the vision here of Stats, he has yet to come across this. Again, just moving out with a couple of gateway units here. But there is no sentry. No hallucination. And again, it's going to be on SOS to punish. Now, the scary thing, if this Oracle doesn't do enough damage, or if it doesn't do any damage, then SOS falls behind. Suddenly, he invested into tech that obviously isn't doing anything for him, and just delays his own Twilight Council, delays Blink, delays everything else in favor of this proxy. And he would be falling further behind. Okay, here we go. The Oracle is on the way. Adept racing back home. SOS setting up, working towards his eventual transition. Twilight Council's on the way for Stats. And the Oracle does go in. There is a shield battery, but it's not done yet. And SOS, he does go in unscouted. Gets 1, 2, oh, soon to be 3 probe kills. 3, 4, can we get 5? Oh, not quite. But 4 kills, a good start here for SOS, especially considering the Oracle lives. The Oracle does survive, and we have a second Oracle coming out. And now suddenly, this is much more deadly here for SOS. The reason for this, the shield battery, as we saw, keeps these workers alive. It out-heals the DPS of 1 Oracle. It does not out-heal the DPS of 2 Oracles. 2 Oracles, 1-shot probes, so this shield battery doesn't mean anything here in the face of 2 Oracles. As SOS rotates over towards the natural Stalkers, oh, they do miss the Oracles! Uh-oh. They are going to be missed. We get into the natural base, we focus on 1, we get 2, 3 probe kills, barely a 4th, we get a 5th. 5 kills in total, but the intercept! Stats, he's in position, he shuts down one of those Oracles. Good positioning there by Stats, but that is still a better trade for SOS. 1 Oracle for 10 probes. Good trade for our red Protoss. Behind this, SOS going to be expanding, working towards Blink, and SOS has taken a slight worker lead. Meanwhile, Stats, he's looking for the proxy. Looking, he does find it, does come across it, and will shut it down. But again, the damage has been done. SOS has been able to stabilize and is now taking his 3rd. Likewise, so is Stats. 3rd base, slightly faster for SOS. So he should be able to maintain his worker lead as long as he breaks free from the supply block. Supply block is a little bit brutal here for our Protoss. Meanwhile, Stats is about to kick in with Blink. Remember, there's a window where Stats has Blink and SOS does not. Looking at the units tab, we do have a Stalker advantage for Stats. 9 versus 6. Sorry, 10 versus 6. But we have the defense advantage. We do warp in a wave of Stalkers. Stats trying to poke in. Doesn't find much damage here. Instead, we do get Adepts into the natural base. 2 workers go down. As we shade into the main base, and again, Adepts, like Oracles, they do one-shot probes, or 2 of them do. And just like that, Stats, he is evening things up. 6 probes full in total. And we're not done. We're going back in. Going back in, and we do barely not snipe that shield battery. Whew. Clutch Blink from Stats. Oh no! Does lose the Stalker. Almost 2. Stats get the hell out of there. But thankfully, because of the Adept harass, we've evened up. We have an even worker count. SOS slightly ahead, slightly. Third base is getting up and running. Back in the main base, still working towards Blink, towards eventually +1. Interesting stats, he has foregone charge. Unlike the previous game, there is no charge whatsoever here for our blue Protoss player. Meanwhile, SOS is going to be doubling down, throwing down 3 more gateways. Charges on the way, sentries, more zealots, more stalkers. As Stats focuses on his economy, we see SOS focusing on his army. So SOS is going to be the aggressor, is moving out. Moving out with his stalkers. The Prism should be on the horizon. There we go. Prism is on the way. So we can reinforce across the map. This is going to be a tight hold here for Stats. He does have a Stalker lead, but Zealots do help with that when it comes to SOS's army. Oh, the push has been spotted. Big scout here for SOS. He does see the army. He does see the Warp Prism. He knows. And he's in position. He's in position. Gonna have to turn back and run. Does have to kite away from those Zealots. But good kiting nonetheless. Does get a lot of damage done. Again, retreating to the shield battery, retreating to the overcharge. Getting a lot of hits in ahead of time. Ooh, bit of an Artosis pylon. The boys are being pulled. And the Zealots are going ham here on this army. Shredding through those Stalkers. The Stasis Trap working against SOS a little bit there. Does have to pull back. The Zealots unfortunately couldn't quite do much damage, and Stats, he does hold on a little bit longer. And blinking back behind the wall of Stalkers. SOS trying to force the issue, but he's run out of Zealots. Has run out of Zealots. Again, the Stasis, not ideal for SOS whatsoever. And Stats, he does force this back. Cleans up the Zealots. Focuses down those Stalkers. The Concave is still brutal. But he has enough. Again, the upgrades in favor of Stats. His Stalkers are just sheerly better. Strictly better than SOS's. Meanwhile, a Zealot counterattack here. SimCity looking good for Stats. Once again, reduces that surface area. GG gets called, and SOS does not touch the economy, doesn't break Stats, and Stats ties the series up 1-1. GG. SOS, no 4th base behind it, no upgrades behind it either. It was committed, it wasn't all in from SOS, and unable to break Stats. Again, that Stasis Trap was brutal. To wind it back a little bit, the Stasis Trap, it caught a wall of Stalkers, and it just created a wall that the Zealots could not get past. Like, they just couldn't do anything there, and that was a lot of wasted DPS for SOS. Really unfortunate. That was clearly not the intention of the Stasis Trap, and with that Stats, he was able to barely hold on. And again, he got away with an entire base full of mining. He got away with upgrades as well, and SOS had nothing else behind it. GG. GG, well played. Like got Stasis Trap. No, back. best freeze. With that, GG, well played. We are going to the ace match. We're going all the way to game number 3. It all ends here on Oceanborn. Let's go. The stasis help stats? Yes, it did. It did. With so much of the supply of SOS in Zealot melee-based units, that was a brutal moment working against SOS. But here we go. We're getting into the ace match. We're getting into game number 3, and spawning in the top left-hand corner of Oceanborn, we have the South Korean Protoss, the red Protoss player representing Club NV, being forced into the ace match. It all comes down to this: who qualifies for GSL? We have SOS. And spawning in the bottom right hand corner, we have the South Korean Protoss player, the blue Protoss, representing himself, clawing his way back into this, forcing the ace match. It is Stats. Here we go. Oh, I can do this as well. Can I? Ah. It's beautiful, Bobby. It's beautiful. The stasis. I don't use that as often as I should. I can bring us in. I usually use it when Yaku's casting, when he's doing like an intro. I can like bring in the webcams. I can bring them in. You're an animal, Einstein. You're an animal. Hi. Exclamation mark pull out in the chat. As we're getting into openers, it's going to be a double gate opener here from SOS, 2-gate opener from SOS, likewise a 2-gate opener out of Stats. Everything is looking normal so far, and we'll keep an eye on SOS. He does have a probe skirting the edge of the map. Hello. What are we up to? We are looking to throw down a pylon. This looks like a fake proxy pylon, just to try to get into the head here of Stats. Against Stats, he's scouting, he's checking, he's looking. Does confirm. Hold up. Where is your second pylon? Where and SOS, he's trying to sell the story. Oh my god, pulling so many boys. I don't think I like this. We are losing so much mining time. We do get a kill on the probe, but I don't know if that was quite worth it, I'll be honest. Okay. I mean, we kill the probe, sure. So, again, this makes it look like SOS really doesn't want Stats to scout, right? He's selling the tale here that, oh, I really want to kill that probe because my pylon is missing, but it's a fake proxy pylon. So, like, is it worth it? Is it worth it in the end? We'll see, depending on what the reaction is of Stats. We do see SOS is going to be the first to expand. Again, going for an economic follow-up. Stats does open up double Stalker. Into a 3rd and 4th, we do have a Robo on the way. He's going for 1-base all-in. Oh my god, Stats responding with a 1-base all-in, Robo, and a 3rd gateway. There is no expansion. Uh-oh, and SOS is going to be in a bit of trouble here, especially with this fast Nexus. Nexus is not going to help here in the defense. Oh boy. Uh-oh. Shield batteries on the way. Pylon as well. Again, Stats with actually a really good response. I don't know if he really knows what's happening. When I saw the Robo, I was like, oh, it looks like he's defending against a 1-base all-in, but no, he's attacking. Here we go, the Stalkers move out, and Stats will get confirmation of the expansion. Yeah, he sees, he knows. Fully aware of what's going on. Prism is on the way. It's all or nothing here for Stats. And SOS, can we hold? Can we survive? Again, he doesn't know. If SOS knew what was happening, we'd see a Robo. We'd see a Robo and Immortal production. We need a production here. We need a Robo. And there it is. Now it's on the way, but it feels late. It is late. Late Robo out of SOS. Stalker going to be going down. Shield battery out of energy. We're just going to be reinforcing. So far, good control out of Stats. Doesn't lose anything yet. Oh! Spoke too soon. We get 1. We get 2. 2 Stalkers go down. Big pick-offs there for SOS. Big moment. The Prism still on the way. Look at the units tab here. We have 7 Stalkers against the 2 of SOS. Oh god. And the Robo is still on the way again. Late reaction here from our red Protoss. Late realization. Here we we go. We are pushing in. We focus down the Stalkers one after the other. We can two-shot. Oh, just barely. Good juggling out of stats. We'll bleed out a Stalker. But we're down to one. We're down to one Stalker left here for SOS. Second Stalker being warped in. Immortal is on the way. And again, SOS, he needs time and he doesn't have it. Doesn't have the time he needs. As stats, he's breaking through. It's a numbers game at this point. One Stalker left here for SOS. Sentries are being focused down. The boys have been pulled. And the Immortal is going to arrive, but stats, he takes control of the natural. Warps in a sentry. Uh-oh. He's looking for the force field. Oh! Can he catch the Immortal? He's dragging it out. That does force field it away. Now, SOS is going to be stuck on one base. To be fair, has a comparable economy to that of stats, but his army, that's the problem. He doesn't have an army. He has one Immortal, soon to be two. Natural going to be going down, and stats, if he wanted to, from here, he can expand. He can expand and macro out of this instead. Deb stays shading in. No. We're going to be threading shades into the main. We're going to kill on the Nexus. Not just the Nexus, but we can even depower these gateways. We focus on the pylon. Adepts, they don't shade in yet. Gateway's going to be going down as well. And SOS, he has to split up his army. He does have to split it up. Gateway goes down. We're down to one gateway left here for SOS. Good force field. Oh, good juggling out of stats. Very nicely done. Slick moves from stats there. And for the time being, we're still reinforcing. Throwing down pylons. Still no expansion. But again, stats has a massive army lead. Does trigger the shields. He commits. We commit to shade. We push in. Not quite. Stats thinking better of it in the end. Does pull back. Two more gateways on the way. SOS now having a comparable production here to stats. But all it takes is one good shade and we can just annihilate this mineral line. Speaking of stats trying to get in. The Prism! No! SOS! Not like this as we do get caught out. Prism taking a lot of hits, but we will barely escape. Oh my god, that was almost disastrous. that was almost game then and there. Calm down, Poppy. As we rotate over, we dive into the main base. Focus down the sentries. You have the overcharge. SOS forcing back stats. Does force him back. Immortals, they come back home, thankfully. Oh god. They do come back. God, but there are so many adepts now. They do such a great job here at tanking Immortal shots. We do shade in. And the force field's not good enough. Stats forcing his way up the ramp. Good juggling here from both players. We still have those three Immortals, but now we're down to two. Two Immortals left for SOS. We're down to one. We're down to 0. GG gets called. SOS has nothing left, and stats will take the series 2-1, qualifying for GSL. GG. GG, well played. Congratulations here. Congratulations to Stats for making it through. My condolences to SOS. Again, unfortunately, it took him a little bit too long to realize what was happening, to realize he was being all-in. As a result, Robo was late, Immortal was late. It means that he could not defend his natural base. He had a hard time. He was trying to, don't get me wrong. He was trying to hold on to that natural, but he just barely could not. And Stats snowballed out of control. SOS, he had some nice moves with his control, of course, with his juggling, with his Immortal Prism Micro, but still wasn't enough to overcome the supply lead that Stats had and the momentum that Stats had given himself. So congratulations. Congratulations here to Stats. SOS is going to be knocked down here to another qualifying match, though. So SOS still has a chance. He still has a chance to make it through. But the question becomes, who will SOS face off against? That is the question. We're here to find out. So Stats qualifies, and we have another series ahead of us. Up next, Nightmare versus DR.